Hello, SpongicX here, and today I'm here to talk about new Pokemon Snap for Nintendo Switch. So, after about 20 years of waiting, the long-awaited sequel to Pokemon Snap is finally here. For those who may not have never have heard of the original Pokemon Snap, it came out in the late 1990s. It was the first 3D entry in the Pokemon series during its original run. So back then, Pokemon was exclusive to the original Black and White Game Boy and Game Boy Pocket, but it wasn't until the N64 where we finally got to see these pocket monsters leap onto a bigger screen in color with 3D models and all that, and Pokemon Snap was our first view at what they could look like with more detail and dimensions, and while the graphics may have aged quite a bit today, back then we really didn't notice. We were just eating it up, and so it's basically like an African safari, but instead of taking pictures of animals, you're taking pictures of Pokemon in their natural habitats, ranging from many different places with very generic names, including beach, cave, lake, volcano, valley, tunnel, and cloud. And so, yeah, not the best stage names, but the novelty was pretty fun at the time, but a lot of people have complained over the years that the game gets old really fast, and that's exactly what I thought even as a kid. When I first played it, I loved it, but once I realized I saw everything the game has to offer, it just didn't really give me a reason to want to go back to it. That, and the graphics have not aged too well, so it's not really fun to take pictures of really low poly models, although they were pretty detailed and interactive for their time, though. Some people even think that the animations in the Pokemon there, while primitive, still have more life in them than the modern-day Pokemon Sword and Shield graphics, or all the way back to the 3DS graphics, you could say. But so, the new Pokemon Snap had a lot to live up to, though. It's like so a lot of people point out, like, how flawed the original is, and that's why people wanted a sequel. They loved the concept of the game, and they wanted to see it improve. So, after over 20 years, did we finally get a good successor to Pokemon Snap? In my opinion, yes. It was worth the wait. It may have been long overdue, but it does make me wonder why it took them so long to make another. Fans clearly wanted it. Nintendo just didn't seem interested, or the Pokemon Company at least. But so we finally got one, and it's in HD on the Switch, and yes, it is good. The graphics are pretty good for the most part, very beautiful, much better than the other Pokemon games, and it's very similar to the graphics you saw in Pokken Tournament. Not as detailed, though, but it was made by the same development studio, Bandai Namco. And so one minute we got to see them in a fighting game with real gritty graphics, and now we're seeing them in a photo game with more photorealistic-looking scenery. But the Pokemon themselves are still cartoony, but they still look much more polished than they did in Sword and Shield or any of the 3DS games for that matter. Overall, I was very impressed with this game. It has the same traditional gameplay where you're in the vehicles, it moves around, you aim with your camera, except this time it also has the option of motion controls, but trust me, you will not want to use motion controls. They are terrible, even in handheld mode. I tried playing in handheld mode today, and it was frustrating. I just turned it off. I'm better off using the analog sticks, but at default, though, the camera controls are very slow, so I'd recommend pausing the game, going to the the control settings for the camera and movement, and amp it up all the way to 10. Trust me, it'll make if you're like good at controlling a control stick, you're gonna want to aim up the sensitivity. It helps a lot to get shots a lot quicker, and I do think the aiming controls are a little trickier in this game, though, because you're controlling two things this time. In the original, it felt like you were just controlling the camera, but now you gotta both control the camera and your view. And so, sometimes you gotta use both control sticks to kind of adjust it right. And just moving both at once seems to move the camera and the movement a lot faster, but I don't know, that was a little nitpick I had, but otherwise it's about as functional as the original. The original didn't have very good aiming controls either, but they were simpler because you just had one joystick, and so you not only gotta, it's like mostly the left analog stick seems to be for like moving the center of the camera, and then the right stick seems mostly for just moving the entire screen, and so you gotta make sure you have both of those aligned to get the perfect screenshots of certain Pokemon, and some of the Pokemon are still, as ever, challenging to capture, but I'd say they're not as frustrating as Pokemon Snap. Pokemon Snap had some really frustrating shots to get. Like, remember the Zubat that kidnapped the Pikachu in the cave level, and you had to keep throwing those pester balls at it from miles away, and they never hit. And it, even when you finally hit it, it just didn't feel good. It was just too frustrating to get. It always feels like dumb luck. It does not take skill. So you still got some throwing mechanics in this game. They're still pretty crappy though, but they're not nowhere near as tricky as the ones from the original Pokemon Snap. And in fact, the progression on this game is a little better. I remember in the first game, I didn't realize there were ways to progress through the game. I remember I was stuck on some of the earliest levels until we had friends over and we were playing, and everyone was taking turns, and then all of a sudden someone accidentally discovered the alternate path just by messing around. And so yeah, it's kind of fun, but it's like it'd be nice if the game actually let you know that there were ways to unlock alternate paths. And this new Pokemon Snap does a much better job at leaving you hints on how to progress. It still might be troublesome for some little kids, though, but I was luckily able to figure them all out without looking it up. But that's not to say there weren't times where I was playing a level and they reminded me that I missed something and I had to go back and try again. But then again, this game gives you a lot of reason to want to go back to levels, though, because unlike the original game where they mostly wanted you to just take one certain picture of a Pokemon, and more particularly, they wanted you to get it as close as possible. In this one, they give you multiple options for how to capture Pokemon. They have like 4 different categories called star category. So there's like 1 star all the way up to 4 stars. And so like the first and second stars are the easiest ones to get. It's like first star is just simply taking a picture of a Pokemon, no matter how near or far they are. And then a 2 star usually comes from feeding a Pokemon, like throwing them what's called the I can't remember. Like, I just want to say the apples. I can't remember the full name of these fruits in this game, but you just throw them an apple and then take a picture of them while they're eating it. That will guarantee you usually a 2 star. And the 3 and 4 stars are usually more rare and harder to find. Usually they require leveling up in certain levels and going back to the level and waiting or doing something in order to trigger the Pokemon to do that. But so, yeah, just like in the original, there's some puzzle solving where you eventually unlock certain items in the game. You can go back to older levels and unlock alternate courses or trigger a Pokemon to do something else by either playing an instrument, throwing them food, or throwing what were called pester balls. I feel sorry for anyone who liked the pester balls because, I'm sorry, they got rid of them in this game. They do kind of have a replacement, though, but they're no longer for pestering. They're for lighting Pokemon up. So it's not really as fun. Sometimes the light can get really distracting in some of the screenshots. It might be good for some of the darker levels, though, but even then, it's not always good looking. Sometimes it just makes Pokemon look like they're glowing green, and it just doesn't look natural. But technically, I kind of missed the pester balls. I thought it was funny how some of the knockbacks some of the Pokemon had when you threw them at them, like when you threw them at Meowth for taunting you in the original Pokemon Snap during the beach level. That was always funny and led to some really funny facial expressions for your camera to take. And so this game isn't as wacky as the original Pokemon Snap, though. It doesn't have as much slapstick or cartoony violence going on throughout, unfortunately, but it's more endearing, though. Like, this game made me go, "Aww," quite a number of times. It is adorable. You'll actually see Pokemon families in this game, or like Pokemon herds, and like I just like practically teared up when I saw like a mother Lapras nurturing her baby, and you saw them nuzzling their heads together, and that was just so adorable. And yeah, this game is just it's like if you have a soft spot for Pokemon or animals, you are gonna love this game. And overall, it's mostly very similar to Pokemon Snap, but it's got a lot more replay value. Like I said, it just doesn't want you to take a picture of each and every Pokemon. It wants you to try to take many different ranks of pictures of them and send them in. And so what makes this a really fun mechanic is how you're ranked on each picture you take. They'll judge it by like the size and distance of where the Pokemon is to the center of the frame. They'll, take away points if it's not looking directly at the camera. And then they'll give you extra points if it's doing something extraordinary, like Pikachu shooting electricity out. That's considered something extraordinary. Or they'll also sometimes add, like, additional points if other Pokemon are in the background, or if the background itself adds to the picture. And so they did a lot of stuff to really revamp the formula of this game. It's basically the same thing but improved, more advanced, and the visuals are really impressive. Like, for a Switch game at least, like, they're nothing like groundbreaking, but for a Pokemon game, they're really good though. The water effects look really good, the lighting effects, the shading effects. It's definitely one of the nicer looking Switch exclusives. So, this game tries having a bit more of a story than the original. The original is mostly, oh, you're just a researcher for Professor Oak, and you're trying to gather Pokemon for him to put in the Pokédex and all that. And then the grand prize, though, is Mew. And throughout the game, you eventually find out where Mew is, and that's the final level. You're somehow up in space in a level just simply called Cloud or Sky, something like that, and you just have to chase Mew around in a bubble. You gotta keep throwing your pester balls and causing Mew to spin until you can get a really good shot of it, full view in the front, and that's it. The game's over. And so this game, it has another story. It tries being a little more in-depth, but overall it just felt like a huge waste of time. But one thing that did impress me, though, is this can probably be marked as like the first Pokemon game, 3D Pokemon game to have voice acting in it. And yeah, some people are going to argue and say, like, wait, Pokemon Puzzle League had voice acting? Well, that one was based on the anime, and usually the games are distant from the anime. And so, yeah, as a standalone Pokemon game, it was shocking to actually see the characters speak English for once, and it wasn't annoying either. Honestly, I'd rather have games like that than the annoying NPC dialogue you get in games like Pokemon Sword and Shield, or the 3DS entries. God, they get so annoying. And so the dialogue in this game is more brief. It doesn't go on forever, but it's not fully voice acted, though. Most of it is speechless dialogue, but the fact that there actually are cutscenes where the characters will speak English, that was kind of a shock, and it wasn't terrible either. It didn't make me want to plug my ears up or anything, but otherwise, the story in this is really forgettable. You're just like an assistant to a professor, and he's trying to get pictures for research, just like in the first game, but a lot of fans of the original game might be really surprised and happy, though, when the main character of the original Pokemon Snap shows up. Remember Todd? Well, he grew up, and yeah, that's shocking, and it's like, to think, like, here's Todd, and he's probably, like, 30 years old now. Meanwhile, here's Ash Ketchum. He's still 10. What? But, yeah, it amazed me, though, seeing Todd. He was fully voice acted. He was all grown up, and that put a smile on my face. That was cool how he was, like, your mentor in this game. And then, otherwise, he also has another student he's mentoring, his apprentice named Phil, and Phil's the worst part of this game. Screw Phil. But, the story just isn't really that great. It's like, it really felt like there was no reason to add all these additional side characters and cutscenes or anything. It felt really unnecessary. It just dragged the game on down. And then the ending was incredibly forgettable and just kind of cringy. I did not care for it. But otherwise, like, the setup is nice, though. I just wish they didn't have to put so much emphasis on it when it just adds to nothing. But, there are, like, what are called, Illumineon Pokemon or something like that, and they are, like, these giant glowing Pokemon, and so they're causing, like, strange phenomenons across these different islands, and so you're supposed to go there and do research while also, taking pictures of Pokemon along the way, and eventually when you get enough evidence, or find, like, an alternate path, it'll lead you to what are basically the boss stages of this game, and so that's a feature that was originally found to be in data of the original Pokemon Snap. It sounded like there were supposed to be some boss fights. Like, there was an unused boss track for a ghost-themed level that was scrapped from the game. And so it's like the only boss stage you could count in the original Pokemon Snap was probably the Mew stage at the end. But in this game, they made sure to have, like, each world has some kind of boss theme. There's at least, like, one island I can recall that didn't have a boss. It was, like, the second world, the jungle world. I don't recall there being a boss in that one, but at first there's 4 main bosses, and then there's said to be a 5th one, and then after that there's a true final boss, and I'm not sure if there's anything more than that, but at least before the credits roll, there are 6 altogether, and so it's like the first one you encounter is a giant Meganium in a giant flower field, and that was really pretty, really gorgeous, and then eventually, you find, like, 2 Volcaronas in a volcano level. Then there's a giant Milotic, a giant Steelix, And then finally, well, and then oh yeah, there's a giant Wishy-Washy as well. And then finally, the last one is Xerneas from Pokemon X. And so it's kind of strange though how aside from Xerneas, it's like none of these Pokemon are necessarily legendary. And usually in games like this, they build up like the big hard to find Pokemon to be like legendary, but it really doesn't matter because it's like it does feel like they just chose random Pokemon, but they somehow worked really well though. It's really enchanting and beautiful. It's like, could you imagine how this game would have looked in virtual reality? Like the mission where you had to try getting the Wishy-Washy, and every time it glows up and leaves that rainbow trail behind in the water. It's gorgeous stuff and leaves a lot of great picture opportunities. And they challenge you to keep trying to go back to those levels and trying to top your last score, which is really hard to do in these levels because they're basically the most basic levels in the game. Despite how they're boss battles. And it's like the only one I actually had trouble on at first was the Volcarona one. I didn't know how to defeat him at first. But then after I replayed it, I realized, oh, you got to throw your apples at them, and then you got to keep throwing the luminous balls at them, and that's it. But it's like, other than that, it's like, for some reason, that was the hardest one for me to go with. The others were very easy. Didn't take much effort at all. Xerneas might be a little hard for some people, but I was still able to get through it. Yeah, overall, the gameplay is really fun, though, and it has much more variety than the original. It's like, at first I thought there were going to be less levels than the original, and but the levels are much longer, and they got splitting paths, and you have an experience system in this game where the better you do with getting high scores and discovering new Pokemon in certain levels, you can rank up and unlock an alternate path or expansion to those levels where it can either make the level longer, add a splitting path, or even have new Pokemon show up or have pre-existing Pokemon do something else. And you can always change the level to go back to a previous one in case you wanted to trigger a certain event. Like, for instance, in a certain volcano level, there's an early part where all the Pokemon are getting chased by that giant T-Rex Pokemon from Black and White. But then, sorry, I forgot its name out of the top of my head. But, so then when you level up and go to level 2, the dinosaur is no longer there. Instead, it's sleeping in a cave, and there's no way to wake it up. So if you want to go back to that awesome scene where it's terrorizing all the other Pokemon and chasing you down, it's like you got to go back to level 1. And so I like how they let you backtrack to the separate levels in all these different worlds. And I'm trying to think, on the top of my head, there's probably like, let's see. There's at least like 12 levels in this game. But some of them are very similar to each other, though. But then that's not to mention how they have daytime and nighttime variants, where certain Pokemon can only show up. And so the day and night levels are very different. They're the same in layout, but the Pokemon that come out and the events that trigger are very different. And like I said, you also get to level up these stages, and so day and night do not share the same level system. So if you manage to unlock like a level 2 or 3 in the first beach level on daytime, you still have to unlock those during the night mode separately. They run on different scoring systems, and this might be annoying for some people, though. Some people might see this as a grind, but to me, I thought it was a good excuse to make this game go on longer without it feeling too tedious. And some of these later levels are really hard to find. You got to keep like replaying them and just messing around, hoping something different will happen. And that's kind of the fun with this one. And not to mention with all the later abilities you get, like the last ability you get is the ability to speed up. And I kind of wish they had the ability to slow down. The original kind of had a brake mode, and this one really doesn't. They do tell you, though, that if you look behind you or if you hold out the camera while doing something, I can't remember what it was, but they said it does slow down the gameplay a little bit, but it's not the same as braking. Yeah, they give you the ability to speed up and not brake, and I kind of wish they let you brake a bit, but otherwise, there aren't too many, like, I mentioned earlier how this game isn't as silly as the original. Like, there were some really bizarre things happening in the original, and it was a little more abusive, you could say. You could actually hurt the Pokemon in a way, and apparently that was too much for this game, so they replaced the Pester Balls with the Luminous Balls, but I remember how, like, you could mess with a Magikarp, and it would anger it to the point where it turned into a Gyarados, and so it's like no matter how many apples or luminous orbs you throw at a Magikarp in new Pokemon Snap, nothing's going to change. I don't know. I haven't seen Gyarados in the game so far. Maybe he's in one of the alternate paths that I haven't unlocked yet. I don't know, but um, or like how in the original Pokemon Snap, there's a part where you could knock a Charmeleon in the lava. He got angered and he evolved into a Charizard, and he could like breathe fire at you and all that. And so you won't get anything like that in this game. The Pokemon won't attack you anymore. You can't really attack the Pokemon. You can still throw apples at them, but it doesn't feel as impactful as throwing the pester balls at them and watching them knock over. It's a little more lighthearted in this game. The original was a little more sillier, but so that might turn a few people off. But otherwise, overall, I'd say New Pokemon Snap does beat the original in a lot of ways. I will say, though, the new one, the music is very forgettable. Like, the original music wasn't that great in the original Pokemon Snap, but there was still some music from the game that I do kind of remember. I remember, like, the main menu theme, the title screen theme, the theme from the lake level, the valley level, and it's like I don't remember any of the music from this new Pokemon Snap, despite putting in over 11 hours in it already. But, yeah, I wanted to make a quick review of it. I want to say quick review. This is going on over 20 minutes, sorry, but this game took a lot to record, so I didn't want to do commentary on every single recording I did, so I figured I'd make a separate video to share my thoughts on the game. And so overall, New Pokemon Snap is a great game. I love it. And not only is the gameplay really fun, but even the side features are really fun. They allow you to edit your photos. You can even realign your photo. So if you try taking a picture of a Pokemon in a perfect pose, but it didn't turn out the way you wanted, they actually give you the option after it gets scored to go back and use like an editing mode where you can align the camera to get into the to get the Pokemon in the center of the picture the way you originally intended. And that's such a great feature because I remember in the original it sucked when you took a really good picture and it's like, yeah, I can understand they don't let you keep it for if you messed up for getting a score, but if you just wanted the picture just to revisit and look back on, it's like, what's stopping you from there? And so this game, they just added that feature, and that was so, it wasn't anything anyone asked for, but it is a huge welcoming addition. And some of the editing tools are really fun, though. They got the basics, like filter effects, but then you got, like, some really funny stickers you can unlock to make the pictures look sillier than they need to be or more beautiful than they need to be. And you can share them online, but to be honest, the online function on this game is terrible. It is incredibly limited. You can barely upload any images for people to see, and all you can do is just like people's photos. And it's just like many other Nintendo games where, like, when they have online features, it's incredibly limited. They don't give you a library of all the many things posted. They only show like a few random selects or a few relevant selects, like the ones that got the most view. So if you really want to share photos on Pokemon Snap, you're better off just uploading them to Twitter through Nintendo Switch instead, because you can upload more at once and you don't have to worry about it fading into obscurity thanks to Nintendo's lousy way of handling these things. And so uploading them to Twitter is also a great way to download them onto your hard drive in case you want to save them on an album you made specifically for them. So, yeah, overall, New Pokemon Snap is a great addition. It is much better than the original, and if you were a huge fan of Pokemon photography and the original Pokemon Snap, I highly recommend this game. I would probably give it an 8 out of 10. It's not a great game, though. Like, it's not a perfect game. It still has a few flaws here and there. Like, I do think some of the aiming controls on throwing the items are a little more sluggish, and the Pokemon don't react as easily as they did in the original game, but it's still overall a much better game, though, for what it has to offer aside from the features that were already in the original game. And like I said, it mostly is the idea of the original game, but heavily improved upon for modern day console. And yeah, I highly recommend it. Well, that's all I have to say for now. Thank you for watching. See you next time, and have a great day.